All right, we are back for another episode of TAGaming. I have Ross and Ron with me tonight. Say hello, guys.
What's up?
Hi.
Hi. Okay. All right. So tonight's episode pretty much mainly about football. It's been building up for a while. I have a ton of notes I want to talk about. Hopefully y'all will get a words in edgewise because I've got to go through. I usually organize this a lot better, and I've just been saving stuff just to go with it. First off, all these predictions and SEC predictions are just full of crap. Ryan and I, you and I talked about it before. We both said we thought Texas A&M was probably a little overrated with the rankings. We said Florida is probably a little overrated with the rankings. And, you know, you have Tennessee finish second, and I think they're supposed to finish third. I guess the one person that gave Vanderbilt one first place vote, I guess was kind of right, since Vanderbilt actually did pretty decent this year. But seemed like the West was kind of wide open. East is just pretty much who can beat Georgia. With that being said, it goes into the whole college football playoff, which that and all these postseason awards is just something to talk about. So let's talk about thoughts of the college football playoff. So right now, Georgia, Michigan, TCU, and Ohio State snuck in there. Well, I guess you wouldn't really say snuck in there, but so my thoughts before y'all talk, there was things where they said, even though it was just the championship game weeks, a lot of people, even some people that were on the college football committee, said they thought Alabama would somehow jump Ohio State for the final spot. Which it didn't happen. Ohio State got it, which if anybody, they probably should have, because USC just didn't look very well. I think it was the second time they played Utah and were owned by Utah. Of course, when USC loses, it comes out that Caleb Williams has an injury. That's what happens all the time. Every time somebody loses, they don't play at their effort. Everybody's gonna say, "Oh, well, they were playing hurt." It might be true, but I hate when that comes out. Like this, let's say that before the game. We're not saying it at all. I think it was one of y'all I was talking to about over Thanksgiving that great shooter for Tennessee, Chris Lofton. He played his entire senior season, and his senior season didn't lead up to the hype that was given to him. He was still a great shooter. He didn't have any of those just breakout games, but come to find out after the season was over, way after the season was over, his family and Coach Bruce Pearl were the only ones that knew that he was going through chemo because he had some kind of cancer. He didn't want the team to know because he didn't want them to feel sorry for him. He didn't want, even said he didn't want, players on other teams kind of feeling sorry for him. And, and so I kind of get that, but going back with that, with Caleb Williams and USC, TCU struggled. They still won, and I get it. A win's a win. Fast and Furious said it doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning. But I don't know. I just felt like they struggled too much, and if anything, could have dropped to 4. I guess it doesn't matter. You're in, but not playing Georgia or playing Michigan, that's a tough battle for either one of them. So I didn't see them dropping out of the top 4 because of that struggle. But still, I just felt like they were, I don't know, because I always talk about a one-loss Bama is always better than some of these undefeated teams. So why couldn't a one-loss Ohio State be better than a TCU who struggled? So just with the college football playoff, Ross, what is some of your takes from it? You agree, disagree, anything, just some feedback.
I mean, for me, it's hard to say, because you do have a 2-loss Alabama and you have a 1-loss Ohio State. and then USC loses twice. They get busted, knocks them out. TCU barely pulls it out. Then you have the conversation. Well, does Alabama deserve to jump Ohio State, or does Ohio State get back in after they got creamed by Michigan? So this is the thing that everybody's been saying, like, but they need to expand the college playoffs, and that's what they're going to do. But could they have done? I mean, they could. I guess they couldn't have done it this year. Done kind of like a wild card.
Maybe the first top two have a bye or something.
Ohio State and Bama, you guys play for the final spot, and then see who gets in. But then again, you do have that conversation. Well, do you want to risk players getting hurt so they that their quarterback going down, and now maybe they end up pulling out against Alabama, and their quarterback goes down, so now they can't compete as well against Georgia or Michigan. Well, you already got creamed by Michigan anyway, but then I heard people reading comments that expanding to 12 teams is going to ruin it anyway, and I don't understand why. I think that's going to actually prove to be give them a chance, these teams a chance that could have make it in the playoffs, a chance to pull one out. I mean, we see that everybody in basketball has a chance.
Yeah.
Right. I understand football is a lot more obviously a hard contact sport. Basketball is not. But you just never know.
Yeah. Well, see, my thing.
And really, okay, now you've got, and like especially with the transfer portal now, and bowl games are meaningless now, almost.
Well, you have people like that Kentucky quarterback. He's not going to play because he's prepping for the NFL, which he should, because he sucks. But you have all those, because you don't want to get hurt because you're going to have these pro days and stuff. And I get it, but
you do, yeah.
But then again, you can get hurt walking to your car. Like with my girls, they say, well, you shouldn't be scrimmaging basketball during volleyball season. Well, you shouldn't be doing this during basketball season. Well, you're going and playing these softball camps. Okay, well, guess what? They could play a pickup game with their brother and break their finger. They could be climbing a deer stand and fall off and break their leg. And what am I supposed to do? Well, you're not supposed to do anything during basketball season. No, that's not how it works. But and like talking about what you're saying. So, when we expand this, the bowl seasons start here in about another week or two. They kind of trickle on out until the 1st of January. But now, do you start the college football playoff a week after, the SEC championships? That way every weekend you're having a big bowl game mixed in with these,
because some of them teams are going to have to play, at least 4 of them are going to have to play 3 games.
That way, if you're having the championship be on January 10th or whenever it is, you can go through there.
And I hate to say it because, and I think Ryan, I think you said it, and I agree with it. A 6-6 team, I don't think deserve a bowl game. I'm sorry.
I said this.
If Arkansas loses, they have a losing season.
Exactly.
6 and 7.
I feel like if you now be bowl eligible, yes, but
I think you need
the chance that you have a chance to finish with a losing season.
It's stupid. Why would you even want to play? I don't want, we've got a mid-season, or we don't even want to play a bowl game.
Yeah,
that's all. And now, and like I said, and you agree too. We get it. You want to get ready for the NFL draft, but basically, okay, like Drew Sanders, man, you're our star linebacker, and good luck to you. I don't care about this game. I care more about my pro career. And I get that. I do. But it's making bowl games meaningless now.
Yeah. Well, and I hate that's where we're getting kind of like college basketball. College basketball, you have to recruit to win a championship every year. Football, we've talked about this before. You have 3 years with these kids to develop a team. And, we've said this. you find out who your team is after 3 years of your recruits. Basketball, your recruits, how many starting lineups has John Calipari lost because the whole team jumped ship to the NBA because they're one and done. So, and you see these teams, you're like, man, they had a great year this year. I can't wait till next year. They got the number 2 recruiting class. They're bringing these boys in with these guys that they had. No, they're bringing these boys in with all these guys that are leaving. So there's no working together to make the team. Like, you pretty much got to get the next point guard. If every point guard that you have always goes pro, you've got to keep recruiting that. You can't sit there and go, I need to get that power forward to come in and do this. And now with the NIL deals, that point guard is going to be like, no, I ain't playing for this guy. He's the backup and he's making $10 million off of Kraft macaroni and cheese. Heck no. I'm going over here to this school where I'm going to get, like, they're not going to want to do that. And then somebody that's saying, they're sitting on the bench going, I'm making $10 million and I'm not even the starter. Like, no, I'm jumping ship too. But the back, in like 96 and 97, Penn State and Florida State were always going back and forth. One, because you have the coaches poll and you have the AP poll. One was number one was number one. And they're like, oh, we're the champions. Oh, we're the champions. And they're like, because which poll do we go by? So the BCS was supposed to fix that with this formulated system. And then it started from 98 when Tennessee won and their polls. Well, then it got to where these teams like Oklahoma were blowing people out every game, 55-10, 55-3. And then they go to their Big 12 championship or Big 10, whatever it was back then, and they lose. Like, they got dominated by Kansas State. Well, since they were so stinking high in the rankings, they only dropped to number 2. So they got to play in the national championship. And that's what's kind of happened with the college football playoff. Alabama loses the SEC championship. They only going to drop to number 3 or 4 at the worst. And that's where Tennessee's at right now. All these Alabama fans want to say, oh, y'all beat us and look where y'all at. You're still ranked below me. And that stinks because Tennessee lost a game late in the season. Alabama lost to Tennessee early. Like, let's say Cincinnati. They lose that game to Arkansas at the very beginning. They run the table. They could be in the top 10 easily.
That's literally what they said. Like, I remember listening to the commentators saying, if they could somehow pull it, or even if they lose this game, they could still find themselves getting into the playoffs because they can run the gamut on the rest of the season.
Let's say they would have won that game and ran the whole table, and all of a sudden, I don't know if they have a championship, but their last game of the season, all of a sudden they lose. Now their college football dreams are gone because they're not that high caliber team like a Bama or Ohio State, and they're out just because of this late season loss. And I get it. You got to drop them in the polls just like you would anytime. If you call a pass interference in the first quarter, you need to call it in the fourth quarter. And I get it, but it just sucks because it kind of reminds me of the whole March Madness stuff that we always talk about, and how you play great for 4 days and you can get an automatic bid. But the BCS, they said that formulated system didn't work. So we were going to do this college football playoff, and we're still debating about which team should be in the college football playoff, just like we're always debating about who's in March Madness. And I feel like 12 teams are going to be like, well, number 20 team, they only had 1 loss. They're a lot better than that 9-3 team. Like, it's just crazy. Ryan, what do you got?
Outside of the top 3, the top 3, the top 3, Georgia, Michigan, and TCU, regardless of what happened at their games, absolutely deserve to be in the college football playoffs. And it's sad because a lot of people are down on TCU, and I'm like, I know they lost, but to be fair, they did lose to a top 10 team. And that if you're gonna be fair, you got to be fair in that way. But they deserve to be there because they all played in conference championship games and they all went undefeated in the regular season and everything. Outside of that, I don't know. I'm at the point now where I'm not really just a fan of like any team, like in that could have gotten in. I don't like that Ohio State got in because I don't think they're good. I think they're overrated as all get out. I think they got exposed. I mean, like, watch, I'm gonna be so wrong, and they're just gonna like absolutely kill the college football playoffs and win the championship. But they didn't utilize their best players. They don't have a good run defense. They have horrible secondary play. I mean, it's just like I watched that as much as that game as possible, and the second half was just like run the ball, drop an absolute dime to a wide open receiver off a play action pass. I mean, at some point you got to be like, okay, this is definitely coming soon. But you lose 20 points at home against, you just don't deserve to be there. And I've maintained that. I have a Facebook status. It's like teams that deserve to be in the college football playoffs and will get in. And it's Georgia, Michigan, and TCU. Teams that don't deserve to be in the college football playoffs and will still probably get in, Ohio State.
Yeah.
I don't like, I mean, I would probably be a little bit okay. And I preface this with a little bit, like it's not very much. If Alabama had gotten in over Ohio State, but at the same time, I'm like, the body of work in Alabama this year also wasn't good. They can't play anywhere.
Well, and they want to validate what they've done the last 4 games.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like they want to, they can't play anywhere that's not at home. Yeah. That's the only place they can play this year. And unfortunately, the only thing they've got going for them is Bryce Young. And Bryce Young is legitimately one of the best quarterbacks I've ever witnessed play college football. I will stand on
that. Got something to say about that here in just a minute.
But I really like watching him play. And I just, that's it. That's it. And I don't think, because we got the best player or a best player, I don't think that doesn't work for me. Like, yeah, it's cool. Like someone, I responded to a comment on a different page, on a different social media website and said, Ohio State does not deserve to be in it. And someone was like, well, we've got the third best wide receiver or something like that in the country. And also like the second best running back in the country. And my response was, I'm glad that you have one of the best wide receivers in the country. What are you going to do with them? Keep underutilizing them?
Are you talking about Ohio State?
Yeah.
Well, so let me tell you about that. I'll probably, when I go over some statistics here in a second about just some random stuff, that Stroud guy, which probably goes with Marvin Harrison Jr. too, but they have like all these touchdowns and all these stats when their team is already up 20 points,
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, you've padded on stats because they were trying to compare, the whole Hendon Hooker thing in Tennessee and things like that. And they're like, well, Hendon Hooker's touchdowns when they're up by 3 touchdowns compared to this guy and this guy and this guy. And he's like way down the list. Like Joe Milton's even up on that list, but it's just things like that.
Yeah. And so, and then like the next one is Tennessee. And the only thing like, man, I hate that Hooker got hurt. Like, I don't know how much that affects the end result of the game. Maybe a lot, maybe not at all.
At the end of the South Carolina game?
Yeah, but the fact that you lose to South Carolina, I mean, South Carolina is a good team. I want to make that very clear. They're actually not bad at all. They went 8-4, if I'm correct. Then, they're in the top 25. So, that loss doesn't look as bad, but it's just like, you lost 2 games. And like, the same way I feel about Alabama in many ways is the same way there. It's like, look, you lost 2 games. I'm not a fan of that. I think I would have put them personally above Alabama just because they beat Alabama. Like, it's like a thing. So, like I want the teams that beat the other teams in the close races to be above the other teams.
And so here's my thing. And I totally get this. A lot of people said, well, Alabama lost their 2 games based on 1 possession. Okay. Fair. And they want to say, well, Tennessee got beat by 30 points. Okay. That was a bad loss. But now you got to think about it. They lost to a top 20 team. Because you always want to look at the now, not what the team was then. Like if Tennessee beat number 1 Georgia and Georgia all of a sudden just crapped out and they didn't even finish ranked. Well, now you're going to say that win is against a non-ranked team. That's what a lot of people want to focus on is what are they now?
Well, if you even want to play, like if people like to play the, what if game, and I like to play it too a little bit, like, do I think at home Tennessee and LSU win? Like, do I think Alabama probably beats them at home? I could maybe say yes to that. But in that same vein, if we're going to play the what if game, I definitely think they would beat LSU at home. I want to make that very clear. LSU was not very good this year,
No.
and LSU is a team that's going to play Alabama hard no matter what. But if we're going to play the what if game, then you got to play it all sides. And, Alabama, if Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt, Alabama loses to Texas. Like it's not a question in my mind. They lose to Texas. In week, 1 or 2?
2.
Yeah, it was week 2.
Week 2.
Well,
like
they
would have lost.
They want to sit here and say, he was very quick the other day, Saban was, to say, well, Bryce Young, he was hurt again in that Tennessee game. Well, if he was hurt, he looked pretty awesome. But then again, then we should take points away from Bama, because that was one of the things they said why Tennessee didn't deserve to be, at the time, 6th instead of 7th, was because we've got to look at their team now. They're not as effective with Joe Milton. Why? And I get that. Joe Milton is probably not a Hendon Hooker. But if Stetson Bennett got hurt in the SEC championship, are you going to drop him from their team from the number 1 seed to the number 2? Even if they won that game, are you still going to drop them? Like, what if Joe Milton came back and won the game at South Carolina? Are you still going to drop him because he's not Hendon Hooker? But so here's like the rankings criteria for the college football. They base it on the strength of schedule, head-to-head game results versus teams in the top 25, results versus common opponents in conference championships. So somebody was trying to compare LSU, Tennessee, and Alabama. So strength of schedule, Tennessee had all of them beat. Head-to-head games, Tennessee won. We were just talking about that. Results versus teams in the top 25. Well, Tennessee beat LSU. Tennessee beat Bama. The only game Bama had was that 1-point win against Texas that they struggled against. And then results versus common opponents. Tennessee beat LSU. Alabama lost to LSU. Tennessee beat Vanderbilt 56-0. And then Alabama beat Vanderbilt 55-3. So still slaughter, but so all these things that they're basing it on, Tennessee was better than all of them. And they're still putting, Tennessee below them. And then I look at some other stats, TCU, Ohio State, USC, Alabama, none of them have a top 10 win. And then Tennessee had 2 based on the teams that they played. And so, and some of them have the same stinking record. It's just like a lot of this stuff just didn't make sense. So, Ross, I'm going to go back to you. And you can either, because I'm fixing to get into a lot of biased stuff, talking about Tennessee, talking about, and just play the devil's advocate thing of why didn't they deserve a shot kind of thing. Like, not saying I agree with it, because I think the top 4 is who the top 4 should be, just kind of like what Ryan was saying. But before I get into that, what are your takes? Like, you can either talk about college football playoff, you can talk about Razorbacks, you can talk about SEC, just anything you want to talk about real quick. Like anything you have on your mind. Like you're.
It was kind of a crazy season in the SEC this year. Teams. It's like almost like everybody beat everybody. You know what I'm saying? I say that obviously, like Arkansas did beat Alabama, and lost games, and then beat Texas A&M. But then like Texas A&M turns around and loses to their next 7 games. Like Arkansas beats South Carolina. South Carolina beats Tennessee.
Yeah.
Tennessee beat Alabama. So does that mean Arkansas beat Alabama? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just kind of topsy turvy like that this year. Like, and this is why again, like I like the idea. I love the idea of an expanded playoff because some of these teams that are playing at high levels lose a couple games. You know, like Tennessee, yeah, they lost to Georgia, and Georgia's, you know, but could they beat Georgia? Yeah, I think they could have. I think they could beat Georgia. I really do. You know, play their best game like they did against Alabama, and maybe you do beat Georgia. You know, but you have one bad loss to South Carolina, and you're ranked. Well, they ranked 7th, right?
Yeah. Well, now they're ranked 6th, but yeah, they went to 7th.
Ranked 6th. Okay, so now they have a chance. They still have a chance to prove it. Prove that you can win the national championship. I mean, like basketball. Right now, like North Carolina's lost 3 in a row. They're not in the top 25 anymore. Does that mean they can't win a national championship? No, it does not mean they can't win a national championship.
Yeah.
They very well could end up being in the national championship this year.
Because they could run the table in the ACC.
That's what I'm saying. Like, no, obviously you can't have a 30. You can't have a 32 team playoff in the college football, but you give some of these teams that had one bad game the chance like they did at Ohio State. I mean, that's what you're doing with Ohio State right now. USC loses twice to Utah, right? So that was their only 2 losses this season. Ohio State has a terrible loss to Michigan, and they both end up in the playoffs. So now Ohio State, a 1-loss team, has one terrible game, gets to redeem themselves.
Yeah.
You have that extended playoff.
And Tennessee could sit here and watch the game film. Let's say they're fixing to hit round 2 of the college football playoff for the national championship. And they sit there and go, all right, let's look at what Georgia did. We're going to blitz from this side, or we're not going to blitz. We're going to make them think we blitz. Oh, we're going to throw short passes instead of midfield pass, you know, change up the whole game plan that is different from the other 13 games they played. And now Georgia's caught off guard and Tennessee wins. And Tennessee wins by scoring 17 points because they control the clock instead of go fast pace. Not that's what Heupel would do, but you could see it just for that one time.
Like I said, now you have a team that was playing at a very high level that lost a couple hard games, and they can redeem themselves to say, well, your 2 losses, you can't win a national championship.
Yeah,
you're good enough to win a national championship. We don't know that though. With a 4-team playoff. What if USC turns around? Would turn around and can beat Michigan or beat Georgia, and then they win a national championship after losing to Utah twice? I don't know. So I'm excited to see that that playoff, that expanded playoff. I see a lot of a lot of talk about the transfer portal.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I don't really have an opinion on it, because obviously I want the transfer portal to help Arkansas. I want good players to come. Like we got Drew Sanders from Alabama. Like I want that, but I don't know. Like the whole commitment thing, the way they're making it too easy for players to say, all right, bye, see you. I'm going somewhere else. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucked. Like, as far as, my favorite team, which is the Razorbacks, they had a mid-season, obviously. Didn't go the way we wanted it to. We're losing Barry Odom. Good luck to him. I hope we get – and, I mean, Odom was working with injuries, working with some – we lost Jalen Catalon within the first few minutes of the game, and he was out the rest of the season. He's an All-American safety. Slusher gets hurt, and then he ends up quitting, and then that bad loss to Texas A&M, which just sent the season downhill. It sucks. It is what it is, but that's what happened to a lot of teams. The seasons didn't go the way they wanted it to.
Yeah.
So, and I hate the fact that we're going to have to wait even longer for NCAA football.
Yeah.
I can't stand it. But I was talking to some buddies about it, and we've talked about this before. I will gladly wait for that game for it to be worth playing.
Yeah. I agree about that.
Wait another year. We're a year and a half to get it.
Run.
Worth it. So
And any takes on what Ross said, or any comments on SEC, Arkansas, whatever?
I like Barry Odom for what he did. I don't like his defense, and I've never really liked his defense. The reason why is because his defense is more predicated on you passing the ball, and you let them catch it, and then you tackle them in space. Yeah, we had like an issue with tackling this year, but I don't know. If you can dink and dunk your way down the field, it's just really frustrating.
it almost. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but it almost seemed like Odom just had an inability or didn't had that. Not maybe not an inability, but just not a motivation to adapt to the game that was going on.
He didn't. It was pretty much you kept it the same the whole entire time. Like there was some adjustments, but there wasn't a lot. But yeah, like the drop 8 stuff, it works. Like if you're more aggressive with it, where Arkansas wasn't more aggressive with it, and so it didn't work.
Yeah.
I've heard some rumors about some potential defensive coordinators that are coming that could be hired. Kind of excited about that, I suppose, because they're good defensive coordinators, but we'll see. I have a love-hate relationship with defense and the Arkansas Razorbacks because I've only seen one good defense ever since I've been born. It's really frustrating.
Yeah.
I gave a prediction for the whole thing, the whole college football playoffs. I predict it to be Georgia and Michigan in the championship game.
I can very well see that.
And it's going to be one of the most for people who like high power, high impact games with a lot of scoring. There's a pretty good chance, in my opinion, that it's going to be a slow burn because both teams have like actually pretty good defenses, and both teams most of the time rely heavily on their run game to do the things that they want to do. I can actually see Michigan winning it. I don't really know. Like Georgia's offense this year leaves a lot to be desired at times. I say that, but I mean, like Stetson Bennett, every time I say that, Stetson Bennett goes off. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore, but it leaves a lot for me to be desired at times. And so, like, I don't know. It just seems like their whole philosophy this year has been, let's just try to suffocate the other team as much as possible. I don't think, like, if you look at the LSU Georgia game, anyone could say, like, oh man, LSU exposed them and everything. I don't know. I'm not saying that they weren't trying, but I'm sure there's a part of Kirby Smart that was like, whatever happens, just let it happen. Like, that's about it. Like, they knew, everyone knew in the whole country that if Georgia goes undefeated, it didn't matter if they won that game or not. They're going to the national championship, playoff. That was the foregone conclusion. They could have probably lost 40-0.
And it's still been in the top 4.
And they would have still been in top 4 just because they won out and everything. And people would have also said, like, they were clearly not trying if they lost 40-0.
Oh yeah.
You
could have rested your players.
Yeah, I've argued if that's not a bad idea. To a point that was made earlier about Caleb Williams being hurt, I watched that game. Yeah, I feel for that dude. I really do. But at the same time, it's like, if Caleb Williams wasn't hurt, every time someone does something like that on like a specific side of the ball, I'm like, man, I didn't know Caleb Williams was out there playing, whatever on defense that just allowed Utah to run the ball down USC's defense throat. Now, don't get me wrong. I know players like have a big impact on a game on different sides of the ball. I maintain that if KJ Jefferson had played the LSU game, we probably win that game. most likely. But I mean, like, but still, it's like, that USC, I mean, not USC, Utah scored a lot of points. That's not on Caleb Williams. Because, he's not the one that was out there, running the ball or trying to defend the ball. The only thing he did wrong was throw a couple picks, which was amazing. I mean, I watched that pick happen in real time. I was like, wow, that was something. But I'm okay with the college football playoff expansion. It is what it is. I'm not gonna I'm okay with it. My only point is I hate it. I hate when people go out of the way like, now our team will be able to get in. It's like, that's not. I'm glad that your team is going to be able to get in. I hope my team gets in. But that being said, if you're outside of maybe like the top 5, top top 6, since it's the top 12 teams in the nation. Like, I'm not just counting that as ooh, look at me. Like, you strive to be the best. Don't strive to just scrape by.
Yeah.
And everything. I feel like I had one more actual point to make. But yeah, college, the portal. I'm okay with the portal. Like, it's good. It also sucks for people. Right now in this current climate, it is good for Arkansas or a team like Arkansas. One thing is we're getting rid of a lot of bad football players, and Arkansas does have a lot of bad football players. Some good ones have gone, and that kind of blows, but we're getting rid of some bad football players. And hopefully, I mean, the hope there is that, we'll replace them with good football players and everything. So it's like give or take. Sometimes it's horrible, sometimes it's really cool. And let's see, portal. I'm okay with the portal. I'm okay with the college football playoffs. Oh, and bowl games. Yeah. So yeah, I'm my contention with Arkansas being a bowl game is you lost to Missouri, and Missouri, I hate Missouri. So, I think that should have been taken away from them just because, but I'm okay. At the end of the day, I am okay with some teams being a part of that. And it's oh, well, our best players aren't playing. That's not good for viewership, but for experience, you get to play players that don't get to play. And that's a good thing. They get extra practices. They get time to play in starter positions. And that'll be good for them in the long run, especially if they stay with that program. So, I'm excited about that and everything. It's I will say this, with our defensive coordinator being gone, with Arkansas's defensive coordinator being gone, with some of their best players being out, with some of their other good players transferring, I'm not 100% expecting a win. But what I am expecting is people that want to step up and play the game to step up and play the game. And let's see what happens. So, yeah, that's my spiel.
Well, I'm fixing to jump into just some stats because, just watching all this stuff talking about who should be in it, who should be doing this, who should do this. So I'm just going to throw a bunch of stats out there. Y'all can comment, just listen as I rant, whatever. So, they talk about Tennessee's offense being a gimmick offense, and it's just a pass-oriented offense. Thought this was kind of cool, which I knew they were up there. I didn't know it was this high. But Tennessee's team led the nation in rushing touchdowns. I thought that was a very interesting stat because you wouldn't think that was, a situation with them passing, we're passing a lot and throwing the yards that they did. But then I saw some other things talking about here recently, all the little postseason awards and Heisman finalists. So Hendon Hooker, I know he got injured, but he got injured the next to last game of the regular season. He's not getting to play in the SEC championship, but he put up great numbers. He averaged 11 touchdowns for every interception he throws. his career, he threw 58 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. That's just unheard of. He gets SEC Player of the Year. He gets SEC first team honors. And then Stetson Bennett doesn't even make SEC second team, and he gets called to go to New York for the Heisman.
Heisman race is stupid. I'm so tired of it.
Hold on. Like, the other thing I saw, because they also say, well, we compare the quarterback strength of schedule. Well,
the same strength of schedule.
Exactly. So like Hendon Hooker has the eighth toughest, and on that list, that Dugan guy or Duggan, whatever it is, has the 25th. Bennett has the 36th. Caleb Williams has 38th, and Stroud has the 39th. Last year, Bryce Young had the 9th hardest schedule, and he won. And they were comparing Hooker stats according to Bryce Young's. And it said something down here. Hendon Hooker is the first SEC quarterback to be named SEC Offensive Player of the Year and not be named a Heisman finalist, while another SEC quarterback is named a finalist. They compare their stats, like yards per game, touchdowns versus interceptions, pass rating, rushing yards, and talking about how some of his stats were second in the nation for Hendon Hooker, and that Stetson Bennett was. They have like their 5 common opponents that they had. So they both played South Carolina, Mizzou, Kentucky, LSU, and Florida. Hendon Hooker had 400 more total yards, 7 more touchdowns, 0 interceptions compared to 3, and about the same amount of pass attempts than Stetson Bennett. So it's I don't know. I saw this other, then just people posting stuff, like Peyton Manning, all the awards that Peyton Manning won, and he came second to a defensive player, and like he won the best college football player, an ESPY award. He won the Campbell Trophy, though, Davey O'Brien, the Maxwell Award. And that's some of the stuff that Hooker's nominated for too. But, if anything, should he have won? I don't know, because, like Darren McFadden probably deserved it, but Troy Smith won it but then again, Troy Smith was a Heisman front runner at the beginning of the season. So it was his trophy to lose as the season went on. Stetson Bennett wasn't on this list. The guy from TCU wasn't on this list. Caleb Williams was, and he wasn't really even known for. He was just known he was in Lincoln Daniels, or not Lincoln. What's his name? Who's USC's coach?
Lincoln Riley.
Okay. I don't know why I said Daniels. But he's in that offense, so they're like, well, he's probably going to be good. Look at Kyler Murray and the other guy just got cut. But that they talked about them. So, but then again, Ohio State lost, and the stats are not as good as what Troy Smith did that year either. But I don't know. Could just be sour grapes, but it's just kind of.
Well, I mean, it's pretty clear this year. I keep saying this, but it's like almost clear this year that they were like, we don't know who it's going to be. And they were just like, names in a hat.
Well, somebody was talking about some other finalists that won something or got elected to be a finalist for something, and they had like half the stats than somebody else did. And it's like, do these people not even know what they're voting for anymore?
I forgot what I was watching. It was on TikTok, but I was watching someone, I forgot who it was. They were talking about the Heisman Trophy race. It actually might have been Brandon Walker. Anyways, the person said that what's frustrating about the Heisman Trophy nowadays is that it has gone away from an actual valuable player who does amazing things in the season. And you see it in you see it within the who's up for the Heisman this year and everything. It's the teams that are in the college football playoffs, and it's like none of them, like Stetson Bennett, didn't play just like spectacular in that way. Didn't wow anything. He's a system quarterback. Like let's be real. He's a system quarterback. Wouldn't like by logic, if he's a system quarterback and he's doing what the system calls him to do, then Brock Bowers deserves to be in the Heisman race. I mean, look what he did. Like the man just did everything to get them. He's really the big reason why I think they'll win a championship, or at least their second championship this year.
When USC was good those couple years, Matt Leinart won. And then the next year, Matt Leinart's yardage, touchdowns, interceptions were lower, passing percentage was higher. All his statistics were better, and his team was still undefeated. But yet he came in third and lost the Heisman vote.
But if they just looked at like an individual player's accomplishments, it would not have to be, these teams that are only in it, or these teams that are only in the national, or mostly by players that are. I'm trying to look up the Heisman finalists, and my phone is not working for me.
Well, it's Duggan or whatever his name is. Stetson Bennett.
It's Stetson Bennett, Max Duggan, CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams. It really should be other people like CJ Stroud. It feels like he's really only a finalist because late last season, they were like, he's going to be a Heisman finalist this year.
Yep.
Caleb Williams, basically the same thing. Like he didn't do jack at Oklahoma for a little bit, and they had him as a finalist already, and everything. Again, Stetson Bennett, the only reason why I'll be happy if he wins the Heisman, he won't. But the only reason why I'll be happy if he wins the Heisman, because I do think it's kind of cool when when someone, well, he didn't win the award, but when someone that's nominated for the walk-on award wins the Heisman, I think that says a lot about people who walk on to football teams. Now, I could make a pretty strong argument for Max Duggan winning it, and that's because that dude was legitimately the valuable player on his team. They probably beat Kansas State if they just let him run that touchdown in when they didn't do that. And wound up getting a fourth down turned over and everything. But again, it should be I'm going to agree with Robert Griffin III. Hendon Hooker should be invited to New York. He played amazing. He deserves it.
If he won it, great. But I think he deserves to be there.
Yeah.
So
and it just comes down to the stupid. We can only give it to the person or to a team that made it to a championship game of any caliber.
Yeah.
But it's just not the case. At all.
Right. Well, we're gonna move on from that. Probably gonna hit on just a couple things. For about 10, 15 minutes maybe in NFL. Ross, are you gonna stay with us for that? Or are you probably gonna go?
For NFL.
All right, we're just gonna talk about some statistics, maybe a couple of things. Because I know you're not into it as much, so
Kaylee needs the computer too. So
all right. Well, Ross, thanks for being with us tonight. Thanks for all your input, and we'll try to do another podcast here as the bowl season's going.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you, Ross.
See you guys.
All right. So NFL, Ryan, I'm going to throw some stats out there. We can talk about a couple things, and we'll try to stay 10 or 15 minutes. I guess this stat's not going to matter anymore. I saw this stat the other day, and somebody said, well, you're just wanting to open up a can of worms. It's talking about the first 59 starts in the 49ers season, or in a career. Joe Montana, who's a great quarterback, was 37-22. Steve Young was 40-19. Guess who else had a 40-19 record? Jimmy Garoppolo.
I was about to say Tom Brady.
and so, I saw that stat and I was like, yep, sounds about right. I saw another stat. Jimmy Garoppolo has 116.7 passer rating under pressure, which is the highest in the NFL this season. And I know that doesn't matter because he's hurt. But some other things I saw, like everybody's talking about, Micah Parsons, Parsons, Cowboys defense. And Micah Parsons already got Defensive Player of the Year wrapped up. But saw a stat yesterday. Nick Bosa, who didn't even get any kind of consideration for Defensive Player of the Year based on what he came back from and the injury he came back from, didn't even get a vote last year. He has 14 and a half sacks compared to Parsons' 12, 15 tackles for loss compared to 13, 34 quarterback hits compared to 22, 62 pressures compared to 58. That percentage is 19% to 18 and a half. He has only played in 11 games where Micah Parsons played in 12. So one game less and has better statistics. The one that gets me is the quarterback hits. So he has 12 more hits than a game. And I don't think that defense, when it's healthy, when they've been healthy for the last 5 or 6 games, I don't think they're getting enough credit than they deserve. And I don't think Nick Bosa is getting enough credit. I think his brother at at the Chargers is getting, more favoritism and stuff. It's just, I just don't get it. But other than that, I still think they said that Jimmy Garoppolo might miss 2 more months or 7 to 8 weeks. That could put him late in the playoffs if the team, wins far enough, because there's about 4 more weeks of the season. So that's half the time. He could probably show up for the Super Bowl if they made it. I think that Brock Purdy looked really good. I think Shanahan knows how to get his quarterbacks, and they've got, when Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt before, they didn't have a developed Deebo Samuel. They didn't have a developed Brandon Ayuk, and Kittle was still young, and so I don't think they have the weapons that they do now with Christian McCaffrey and, and having the great defense that they do. And, I feel like it's like a Stetson Bennett kind of thing. You have the defense. All you got to do is have somebody that can manage to give it to your weapons. You score about 20 or 30 points, your defense is going to win the game for you. But Lamar Jackson being in his contract year, I know he's hurt now, but he's played like crap. A lot of people are still on the Cowboys bandwagon. I'm still just not sold. Everybody's talking about them playing the Colts. Okay, they played the Colts. Good for them. But we talked about Buffalo Bills. They could catch on fire, but they did the same thing last year. It started off hot. Buffalo Bills went down the hill until they made a little run in the playoffs. But, the Chargers, the Rams are done. But what are your takes on NFL?
I don't know. Like if I just think about the Super Bowl, I'm at the point now where I don't know who's going to be in the Super Bowl. I still favor the Bills a little bit, just because of, when they're clicking on all cylinders, they're really hard to beat.
Yeah.
Like they're really hard to beat.
What about Dolphins? Did the 49ers kind of expose them?
I didn't watch that game, so I don't actually know. But
the only thing they had was the touchdown, the very first play of the game for like 75 yards. And then they had another big pass to like Tyreek Hill. Other than that, 49ers pretty much did what they wanted to do.
I think their coach has them on the right track. They're probably like a player or two away from an actual like deep run. I mean, I could be wrong. I could say all this and they're like, hey, Super Bowl. But I don't know. I just think they're probably like they're probably missing something. I like Tua as a quarterback, by the way. It's kind of become, it feels like he's the heart and soul of that team. The Chiefs always have something wrong with them, and it's just they're lucky enough for it to be covered in paint by having one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and one of the best wide receivers / tight ends in the NFL right now.
Well, I think they're finding a weapon with that Pacheco guy now too.
Yeah,
where
but
Smith-Schuster and some of them didn't quite pan out.
it always feels like if you're a team that can like legitimately run the ball, they're going to give that team a fit, like just a horrible fit. But outside of like those teams on the AFC, I'm not like just super sold on anyone. Lamar might be hurt. I don't actually think he's playing to his full potential because, they don't want to pay him. So I can't imagine how much he cares about them winning games or not. I'm trying to think who else is in the AFC that I would consider good this year.
Well, the Bengals have been warm the last few weeks.
Yeah, they could, maybe they're catching fire and whatnot. They have one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos out there. So,
but the Chargers haven't gotten over their hump. The Raiders are not.
Oh, the AFC West is just bad. People are gonna come away from the Broncos Chiefs game this week and thinking, oh, look at that, they're gonna win a Super Bowl. The Chiefs are, and I'm here to just say, look, just because we don't know how to score touchdowns doesn't mean that you're actually good enough to win a Super Bowl. Just gonna throw that out there right now. And yeah,
and then I feel like Raiders coach, he'll probably end up back at the Patriots being their offensive coordinator because that's what usually happens. He can't do well as a head coach, and he just runs back home.
Now, for someone, by the way, I got to say this. The Patriots, someone said this on Twitter the other day, and I laughed at it. The Patriots, Matt Patricia is running the Patriots offense like a defensive coordinator, like as a defensive coordinator who wishes that this is how everyone ran their offense. Because, you don't have to deal with passing game. You just got to deal with the running game and everything.
Yeah.
And who knows? Hey, maybe Mike White. Maybe Mike White takes the Jets all the way. Wouldn't that be something? NFC side,
I'm not sold on Vikings.
If the 49ers figure out their whole offense thing with a new quarterback, they could do it, especially if they stay unhurt. I like the Eagles. I gotta be real. I like the Eagles. They're fun to watch. They play hard. Jalen Hurts is that guy. And by that guy, I'm not talking about like he's just like it's this phenomenal athletic ability to do whatever he wants to do. He just plays hard. Like he's a hard player, and he's gonna, it helps them more than anything else. And he plays pretty smart for the most part. Their only thing I'm not a fan of them is I still think their run game needs a little bit of tweaking. Because you can run the ball on them, and if you can run the ball on them, they might lose games. But I like them. I sort of like the 49ers. Again, I just want to see what's going to continue happening as they go on. I don't ever trust the Vikings at all whatsoever. I don't trust Kirk Cousins. Past that, well, I mean, I a little bit do favor the Cowboys. Like, yeah, they beat the Colts and everything. I am impressed with how they beat the Colts. I will say that. I was watching the game, and I was watching when the Colts went for that 2-point conversion, and it just amazes me. I'm just amazed to watch, man, with 3:43 left in the game, going down or going for a 2-point conversion to tie the game, and then them just scoring 33 unanswered points. That's just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
I think the Cowboys defense can lead them pretty far into the playoffs. their offense has to do a little bit better. And by a little bit better, I mean like Dak makes some decisions sometimes. It's like, what are you thinking, dude?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you throw it there? Now there's been a couple times like, there was like one potential pick, like there was like an obvious pass interference on the Colts, which didn't get called. And like there was another one that was almost a pick where dude fell down on his own. Like he just fell down. And like, so I was like, okay, I get that. But I mean, I have seen interceptions from him that are just like, are bewildering. Like, what are you thinking? Why are you doing that? And everything. And it's also interesting to watch Michael Gallup become like wide receiver number 1. If that continues on, and still does good, that could be a game changer.
Yeah.
They're not going to get Odell. I will say that. Like, if they got Odell Beckham Jr., I would think that they would actually have a really good chance to go all the way. But from my understanding, or from the rumors I've been seeing, Odell Beckham Jr. is still dealing with a bit of an ACL issue.
Well, I heard that Cowboys something today said they're not interested.
Yeah, so I don't think he'll play this season at all, which makes perfect sense out there world, because I put him
6 to
on
8 weeks out.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense out there world, because I put him on my fantasy team thinking that he would be picked up by somebody. So
Well, especially when they started talking about it like 2 months ago.
Yeah,
you would think that he's coming back in weeks.
But hey, there's always keeper players, and there's some players that are just gonna not be kept after the season on my team. And why not free up a spot for Odell? Let's just go ride with it. That's my thoughts on the NFL.
Awesome. All right. Well, that was it for tonight.
Woot.
Really want to see how some of these awards pan out, see how rest of the season goes. I really want to. Are you big into? I don't think you played the game, but are you interested in playing or watching the Last of Us series?
I might. I have to be in a mood to watch anything that's zombie related, because I sort of feel like, we went really hard on the whole zombie fixation.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was a little overwhelming. And I've never played the game, so I'm not accusing it of this, but shows like The Walking Dead, I like The Walking Dead I liked it for a while, but shows like The Walking Dead became like more of a who are we going to kill spectacle.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of that. And that has nothing to do with like any beliefs I hold. It's poor storytelling, in my opinion, to be like, look who we're killing this week. It's like, that's such lame storytelling. If I wanted to watch something like that, I would watch Happy Tree Friends.
Yeah.
But I just,
watch South Park.
Yeah, or South Park. But like,
But no, I get you.
I know it's going to be well acted. So,
like, I mean, I saw the trailer for it today, and like I said, I'm interested with it, but I thought about doing like a podcast on that, of just discussing the show. So if it's one of those that you end up catching some, maybe we can do special edition for that. But all right. But yeah, that's gonna be it for tonight. Ryan, thank you for the talks. I was curious here what you wanted to say. I wanted anybody who's listening to also hear what we have to say. So I know we have listeners and stuff, but from other countries. So I know pretty much who our listener is in Germany, but we have listeners in Canada, Australia, South Africa, Aruba, St. Martin, Trinidad, Armenia, Norway, Romania, Ireland, and the Czech Republic. Like, there's been some more since our last ones. Looks like a lot of we've had one person, or not one person. We've had somebody that's 60 plus of the age listen. A lot of our other viewers have been between the 18 and 34 year range. So if you are subscribed and you are listening, thank you for listening. Hope you're subscribed to us to get every time we post this. There is ways that you guys can invest in our program, keep us going. Our little group has talked about hinting around and making this a little bit bigger. Maybe not a primary job right now unless it became that. But if you are interested, shoot out an email at titanavengergaming@gmail.com. You can find that website on the podcast page. You can also message. There's interactive polls and questions about like who do you think your favorite quarterback is? Who do you think is going to win the championship? So please feel free to partake in that. And if you have any topics you want to hear about, or if you are listening on a regular basis from South Africa or Australia, and I don't know how well I'll be able to do it, but we might hit on a topic of soccer or football that's in y'all's country. Because I'm sure not watching the World Cup, so I wouldn't be any help with that. Ryan, would you?
I watched a little bit of the World Cup. I
any.
watched it until America got beat, and then I stopped watching it because, in my personal opinion, everyone else, when America got beat, it was over with.
Yeah,
the World Cup doesn't exist anymore. And I will also say this to other people out there in the world who love soccer. I'm just going to throw this out there to you, my friends, and you could feel free to like message him and see if you can come up on here and just, run your mouths. If we tried, like if we cared about World Cup soccer or soccer in general, we would run the table. You would never win another soccer game against America ever again. So, so if like you want to get on there and, if you want to come on here and potentially run your mouth about it and tell me how I'm wrong, feel free to, but USA. In fact, we let the Dutch win. Ha ha ha. We let them win. We just got tired of playing because we got other things going on. LeBron is back. Cowboys might win a Super Bowl. College football playoff is super important right now.
Yeah.
No one cares about soccer anymore. I'm joking, but I'm also not joking. And it's called soccer, not football, soccer. Which actually, fun fact, because I've seen this so many times. You know why it's called soccer?
Why?
So this is such a kind of random thing. So it was called the Association of Football or something like that. Back in the day, you know how slang terms happen and everything?
Mm-hmm.
British kids would, for some reason, their slang would have like an ER on the end of it. That would be the slang word. So like, take something like baller, let's play ball, let's play baller and things like that. And so like it would just happen. That's what they would do. And on top of that, Association of Football, or whatever the name was, it's just a long name. So what are you going to do? You're going to cut it down, or not cut it down, but people are going to like call it a different name. Like it's going to be an abbreviated name, like the Association. And just through like attrition in British slang at the time, they cut that down, and it just became, using their British slang, it became soccer. So soccer quite literally means Association of Football. it's strange. I've seen it multiple times. I'm not saying it all the way correctly, but if that's where the name comes from. It's just a British slang with an actual name for the sport. So put together. There you go.
Good lesson.
Fun times. But we don't have anything like that for American football. We just call it football. We don't need a slang term. We don't need a nickname for it. The only time we deviate from it is when, pro football, college football, high school football, XFL football, USL or whatever, football, Canadian football.
Yeah.
We're so much better. I just want you to know that because we're America and people love American football. So,
all right. Well, we're gonna end our episode there, guys. Again, shoot us feedback. Thanks for everyone listening. Have a good night.
American football's best.